Hi, so we're gonna assemble the case for the umbrellas and kind of show you how that gets put together. Um, you've got case parts. The etched bits don't have any paper on them, but you're going to want to remove all this backing paper as the very first thing. Some tweezers are good for that, just to kind of pull up an edge or a knife or something like that. I don't want to scratch it too much. Let's try scalpel here. Um, You use a fingernail. Since I got the gloves on, it's a little hard to do that. But just kind of find an edge. As soon as you get an edge, you can pull up that paper. Let's do that again because I don't know if it was visible the first time around. But you're just going to kind of pull that paper off and set the parts aside after you do that. So once again, if we kind of get a scalpel or something sharp under the edge there, slide it. Make sure you don't want to scratch the plastic. And might as well do all the parts while we're at it. This particular one's a little fragile, so make sure you don't bend it or break it while you're doing this process. Should not. I mean, it's not going to break just touching it, but don't want to do anything extreme here. And remember to pull the backing off of both sides. In the case of this front piece, I'll show you something. So get this off. The etching sometimes will leave a little bit of paper there in the lettering, so you might just take a knife or a fingernail and just kind of lightly try to get that little O to be exposed. See, I think even just through my gloves with the fingernail, you can kind of scoot that off. And you may need to take a paper towel just to clean up these etched parts on the indicators here, if it needs it. Okay, so the fun part here is these little light pipes. So you've got a little bag with these little clear shapes. Those are going to go into this piece and the top piece. So we're going to assemble the whole thing upside down. And what we want to try to do is assemble these light pipes first and then slowly build around it. So the shape here is we've got a tab that's actually going to go into, so this actually goes down into the top piece. There's a little notch for the PCB of the Raspberry Pi boards, and then a little bit that sort of kind of sticks out around the edge. So basically, if you've got in this position, you want that little notch to go towards you, and you're going to set each of these into, there are pairs of these that go together, and you want to set two at a time into the little slot right there, and they should fit sometimes snugly, sometimes maybe a little bit loosely, but they should sort of stand up on their own. And just make sure again that slot is going towards you. You try it two at a time. Sometimes it works, and sometimes they're a little bit tricky. So maybe one at a time. And it may take a little fiddling to get this just in the right position. As you can tell, I'm doing well already. Tweezers maybe? I don't know, let's see. Kind of help hold them in place. In some cases, they're going to, like this one's a little bit loose, and this one's really snug, so you might need a little bit of just kind of pressure to put them in there. Again, if you join two of these, kind of put two of them together, you can kind of get them in at the same time in some cases. Or if they're snug, you'll have to massage it a little bit. Can also sort of mix and match the pieces here. If one doesn't fit, try another one, because they are all a little bit different, backwards, a little bit different width and thickness, I should say. So again, that's really snug. You can kind of see it's kind of fitting in there fairly tightly. If these end up too tight and you can't get it in, get in touch and we'll figure out a solution for you. Match up the notches. Okay. All right, got all those in place. So you've got the little LEDs kind of sticking up like that. If they fall out of place, put them back in. Kind of leave that part flat. Now, this side piece is going to get attached next. What you probably want to do is think about sliding that in there and then kind of lifting it up, and then until we kind of get it basically so these little tab parts can fit in place properly. Sometimes it's a little harder to do this way, so it's a little easier to go this way, lift it up and around. Hopefully this is coming through on the video okay. And then when you've got it sort of roughly there, these little top parts are going to slide into the tabs on the top. So you should have this sort of two pieces positioned together with the light pipes kind of holding it in place. So, cool. That's ready to go. Now, here's where things get interesting. So again, we're upside down, so this is going to flip over. And then you see there's a notch in the PCB here. So that's going to go where these little plastic guys we just assembled are. So when you kind of set this on top, you're going to sort of try to get it to get those notches to sort of fit on either side of the little plastic bits here. Hopefully this is visible enough in the video. So the tricky bit here is probably, if it doesn't quite go, it might sort of be a little bit of a tight fit. And so I kind of got it in place, but you can see there's one of the light pipes there. It's kind of sticking out. So I'm just going to push that back in with my finger. And you can sort of like press this all together. And once it's there, be kind of careful because it's not attached yet. But once it's kind of there, you want to maybe pick up the whole thing from the bottom and see if those are kind of in a good place. So now, next part here is, do we want to attach some other parts, or should we just leave it? Yeah, let's leave it like this and put on the other things. So on the other side, we've got, obviously these guys go to the side. Looking at these pieces, there's rounded parts which go to the bottom, and there's flat parts which go to the top. So in this case, this one goes this way with the etching on the outside, and that lines up with our MIDI jacks over on this side. A little hard to see with black on black on black over here. This one only pretty much can go one direction. It goes around the jacks on the Pi, and each one of these has got a little slot, tab slot thing, so it's going to go into the top piece like that. Same on the front side. Again, the little etching on the front there goes outside, and tabs go into place. So that's all there. Then you'd be tempted to put the bottom on at this point. Don't do it. We're not there yet. Well, we could be there. Let's go ahead and do it. Keep lying to you here, but trick is we've got to grab our screws and spacers from the parts kit from when we did the assembly. So we've got over here some short screws, some long screws, and some little 3mm spacers, which are little cut pieces of acrylic. So we need the long screws for the bottom, and the short screws for the top, and the spacers for the bottom. So here's where things get perhaps tricky. I don't know. Each of these spacers is going to go over the holes in each corner mounting hole for the Raspberry Pi. And it's just going to keep everything kind of in the sandwich nice and snug when we assemble it. So what you want to do is sort of get those in position, maybe use tweezers or a pair of pliers or something to sort of nudge those so that they line up. And if they don't, you can always kind of take this apart again. So since everything's nice and flat, we're going to then set this guy on top and then screw it together, screw together the bottom part. So again, your holes are going to match up, and the slot here for the SD card makes it kind of obvious what direction it goes in. So you should just be able to sort of like drop this on, and then I can kind of see over here, this little guy is not in place, so I might just sort of nudge that with a pair of tweezers, or you can use the screws themselves. I'm going to drop the screws in first, all 4 of them. Again, keeping this flat on a table is kind of a good idea, because then it won't move around too much. And then we're going to go ahead and like lightly screw those into place. You might need to wiggle the screws a little bit to get it to where they attach to the headers on the Pi, which is on the other side of the PCB there. So just kind of give it a good wiggle and see if the screw feels like it's kind of biting in. And you kind of check and see if they're good. Don't tighten that down too much already. Now, the fun part here is try to flip the whole thing over without losing the whole bottom part. So if you have your tweezers or something, you can just sort of like lift underneath the bottom edge, get your hand on there, and keep it sandwiched together with your fingers so you don't have the top fall out. You can kind of look at this side again to see how the little LED windows, the little light pipes are working, and then just flip the whole thing over, and we're going to screw the top on, and we're done. So again, these shorter screws are going in the top position. You can go ahead and tighten these down. Lost my screwdriver. Yeah, you don't have to tighten them hard, just give them a snug, because you might need to take it apart in the future. Don't want it to be too difficult. I suppose my hand in the frame there isn't too exciting. And last one. So you can go around and give them just a quick snug. And what you're looking for is to make sure those little LED windows are kind of through those notches. They're nice and flat right there for the most part. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be pretty close. Go back to the bottom and just sort of snug up the whole thing with and in theory, everything should be sort of nice and snug together now. If you look at the side and it looks like a little boat or something doesn't look quite right, you might just loosen a screw or two. I'm going to do that over here because this feels a little funky for some reason. And kind of press everything together. Oh, looks like maybe the PCB wasn't exactly right. So if you kind of go along that edge and just kind of make sure those are snapped into place on the PCB. You might do that before snugging it all down, just to make sure things are nice and attached. Especially if it feels like there's something that's not as bendy or weird. But again, it's not crucial to have these tight. You just can have them snug. Okay, MIDI ports, front ports, TRS, USBs, LEDs, and that is the finished unit. There you go. Thanks.